Live on a Tuesday night, ladies and gentlemen. And no, this is not a random night of the week because of COVID like it was during that 2020 NFL season where we were just getting games on basically every single night of the week at some point. This is just how scheduling works. Because life comes at you fast, and then you remember, oh, it's been a few weeks since we did an episode. So we're back, ladies and gentlemen, for season 3, the third season of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, the best NFL podcast out there, the fastest rising NFL podcast out there. At least we still like to think so going into season 3. And I am joined by my guy with me, the master of games himself on the show, my brother Justin. Justin, how we doing here, man?
Just preparing for another season of misery, I mean, maybe my quarterback will get hurt 4 plays into the season. Maybe I'll lose the pick challenge in the finals again with a pretty substantial lead. Who knows? Who knows what's in store for me this offseason and this regular season?
Well, I didn't want to be the one to mention it, but this man right here, this is the Cody Rhodes of this podcast, ladies and gentlemen, because he is going to 2024 for one goal. He has one task in mind to finish his story. And speaking of stories, I think most consistent thing in show history is Rick just never being here for the first episode of a season at this point, Justin. He's not here yet again. He did this last year, and he did this for the very first time.
He thinks he won now that he thinks that he could just start taking shows off.
Also, is he becoming like Roman Reigns, you think?
Yeah, probably.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the third of our trifecta here, the Podfather, is not able to make it due to contractual obligations of always missing the first episode in person. The dude just never shows up to these first shows.
Yeah, we wrote that into his contract. Please, come on.
I mean, maybe he sneaked it in there when we weren't looking. Who knows? But despite that, ladies and gentlemen, we're not alone here. Just generally speaking, we're not alone in this universe. There's 7.8 billion is the number on Earth at this point, just something like that. But no, we're not alone for this episode, ladies and gentlemen, because I made a phone call, and it's not like Paul Heyman all the time being like, call Roman Reigns. I think we've already surpassed last season's total of wrestling references just on this episode of season 3 alone. But I did bring in a friend of mine to help talk some football on the show because, guys, it's NFL free agency. We definitely missed a good amount of stuff from our time away. Had to take some time off. Work got busy for us. Personal lives, etc. So a lot of stuff happened. It's going to take us multiple episodes to catch up to this properly, and then we're probably going to have to do an episode after these episodes to talk about who's left. Do that. And so with that being said, we have to get a little bit of help to get us going in this first premiere episode of the season. So I went to the well. I went to a man who I trust. I've done many podcasts with him. Heck, me and him did a consistent podcast for a long time. We're in the top 1% of podcasts, both that show and this one. I normally call him the baseball Don, but in this case, he could talk football too. He's the godfather of the gridiron. My brother, James Barcia Bars. Brother, how we doing? It's been a minute. You're muted.
All right, so let's try that again. How's everyone doing, first of all? Let me tell you, though, Jerg, you got me so nervous here. I forgot to unmute. The intros, they get better and better. I blush. I don't know how many times we've done this. Every episode. I don't know how you do it, Justin. It's just I'm so flattered every time. But I'm excited to be here, guys. Thank you for having me. And, what's better than talking some NFL free agency? It's literally like Super Bowl number 2 for Justin and me over here. Our off seasons and post seasons and regular seasons aren't looking too hot, but hopefully we got something going on here in free agency.
Indeed. And boys, I had to bring my guy here. He loves football. This is a man who has done, you can see his handle, Bars Talks. Of course, we're definitely going to plug that at the end of the show as well. But this man knows his stuff. Godfather of the Gridiron. That's like the second or third shirt we can make in the history of the pod, Justin. So we're starting to build a lot of catchphrases here on this program. But James is here to help us talk free agency because, like we said, a lot happened, and especially a good chunk happened between these two men-specific teams here. We got a Jets fan on top of the screen with me. We got a Giants fan at the bottom of the screen. Our other man is, he's former Jets fan, potentially a former Bears fan. It's a constant rotation here for the Podfather. We'll see who he'll be cheering for in 2024. Probably someone in the UFL instead of an NFL team for all we know. But as we get into this episode, Justin, this is the first time. I think this is the first time because I don't think you guys ever crossed over at the same time on Somewhat Sports. So this is Sports Agents of Chaos. How you liking the first 5 minutes with Bars here?
It's exciting. it's nice to have like a real fan, back on the stage. So it'll be interesting to see how we go from here.
So just out of curiosity, how does he pick his teams? Because it's very random to go from the Jets to then Chicago.
Now it's a wheel.
It's
I'm sorry, it's the wheel. Not just any wheel.
The Wheel of Chaos.
The
Go on
Wheel
now.
of Chaos.
That's patented by the
It's
show.
the Wheel of Chaos. That's it.
So basically, Bars, here's what happened. So last year and this year as well, we've already done a chunk of it. We take all 32 teams off screen and put them in a bracket. We get it down to, I think, the final 8. And then here on the show, we spinned last year to decide his team. And we're going to do that again this season. Probably, I would like to try to get it done before the draft if the Pod 5 schedule permits it. But we'll do it on here. It'll be a couple wheel spins, and we will see who the final 8 team, well, which of the final 8 teams he has, which, by the way, I can reveal it to the people now. I might as well. I don't think it is too big of a deal.
I'm excited to hear the options. I need to hear the options after all this. We're talking it up. Let's go.
So here we are. So we have 4 quadrants, by the way, that ended up deciding this. And the 4, because we did this NCAA tournament style. So the regional finals, you could call it. In the first region, quadrant 1, we have Colts versus Jets, so he could return to his Jets fandom.
Well, there's a condition for that, but we'll get into that later.
we'll learn the condition when it's the actual episode to decide. In quadrant 2, we have an NFC South showdown between the Falcons and the Panthers. I'm sure we'll be bringing up both those teams in this episode today. In quadrant 3, we have the Los Angeles Chargers versus his Chicago Bears, so he could be staying in Chicago for another year here, potentially. And then in quadrant 4, we have, I think, honestly, the most interesting matchup. This is the first time I'm ever cheering for one of these teams to actually win games here, or win spins in this case. It is the Arizona Cardinals versus the Minnesota Vikings. So it should be very, very interesting to see in, maybe 2-3 weeks' time, whenever we do end up doing this. And all the quadrants have names, by the way, but I'm going to save those names for when we actually do it, because it's going to be a lot funnier then. Shenanigans aside,
some good teams, not bad teams there. He got some options, but it's I don't know. As a Giants fan, I'm torn right now, Justin. I don't know how you feel. I'm very hard on this. You need to be a big fanatic kind of guy. You guys jerk. I go crazy. I really do.
That's why I talk all this trash that I do, because not only did he spurn his own team, which is regrettable to begin with. I mean, I don't know how you live with yourself switching from team to team. It's just. But then, not only that, he spurned my team, which, to be fair, I guess that team spurns itself. It does. I get it. But I mean, come on, just in one season, the Bears actually have a chance now. The Bears actually look like maybe they made some decent moves, and now you're just gonna throw them away again. Just they threw away Justin Fields.
This would be the season that you want to be a Bears fan. But hey, I digress,
His future is in the wheels. It's not hands. What do they call the thing at top that kind of decides when it stops? Well, actually, our wheel doesn't even have that. Irregardless, the Wheel of Chaos will decide that in a couple weeks' time. For now, we have something we can tangibly discuss with some finality for the most part, and that's the free agency decisions that have occurred. So in this episode, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, it's fun football chaos here on the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. And in the football section, we're going to be talking about a decent amount of free agency signings today. What we're going to do is that we're each going to give a couple signings that we like right off the bat in free agency from the massive amount of them. We're going to give a few signings that we're 50-50 on, could go either way. We could be swayed depending on how things play out. But we need to give it time to see what happens in this 2024 season. And then one signing that the second we saw, we're like, huh? What? Just complete confusion. Don't understand it, whether it be the fit, the contract, any way that we want to grade it for ourselves personally, that is going to decide this. Is there a chance that maybe one of us thinks something's 50-50 and the other one is actually liking it? Probably, knowing this show. So that being said, we will get to that. But first, the fun. Justin, we have a Would You Rather.
All right, guys. So this is going to be very specific to what has happened in free agency. And if you had a team that you think is going to make a major leap this year based on the free agency moves that they have made, and they're going to make a serious playoff run, guys, which team are you betting on? The Atlanta Falcons or the Chicago Bears? Now, for what you guys may or may not know, the Falcons made some huge moves this offseason, including signing their multi-million-dollar quarterback Kirk Cousins to a major deal. They also traded for Rondale Moore. They signed. Oh man, I'm gonna forget names all of a sudden because I'm on the camera. They signed the receiver from the Bears. What the heck's his name, Jordan?
Mooney.
Mooney.
Darnell Mooney. They still have Bijan Robinson. They still have Kyle Pitts. They have a ton of depth there. Their offensive line was excellent last year. They get the majority of that back. And they look like they could have a pretty solid offense. Now, Chicago also made some big moves, trading for Keenan Allen. They still have DJ Moore. They signed DeAndre Swift. They've been working heavily on that offensive line. And, let's not forget they have the number 1 pick this year, which is all but assured to be a quarterback out of USC, I believe.
Most likely.
Yeah, so
most likely. Maybe that's why he's leaving the Bears fandom, because he doesn't want to cheer for another USC quarterback.
That is definitely a thing for him. So, guys, schedule out of it, just in terms of additions, roster, who you taking?
That's you know what, this might be one of the more 50-50 ones that we've had in a while here, because you mentioned a lot of those additions, Justin, for both sides, and the Falcons definitely made a good amount. You look at the Bears too, and I know you quickly listed a few of them. The big one being, of course, they have the number 1 overall pick again. The DeAndre Swift, big, of course, and the Keenan Allen trade for Chicago. That's massive. It's very tough here because, I know we said take schedule out of it, but just to an extent, not scheduling wise, but just like, place in the conference. Who is more likely to get an edge and maybe win their division? Because that's the first thing I think you need to look at. And I think for Atlanta, in a division that, let's be real here, even with the run that Tampa Bay had, still not the most impressive thing. They were certainly beatable. There were instances where they were beatable. I think them and the Falcons split the season series last year, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like they swept the NFC South and went like 5-1 or something like that, or even 6-0. Like, and they could be had. So I think that's a big thing that, to me, leads in Atlanta's favor, because the first thing you need to do to make the playoff run you're talking about is make the playoffs. And I have to give that slight edge to Atlanta. I'm not saying Chicago didn't make moves. These are critical moves that it looks like, unlike what it was for, and I know wasn't that high on him, but for Trubisky and even for Fields, it looks like they're trying to set something up to an extent there for their soon-to-be number 1 overall pick coming in, as opposed to what it's been for the last couple quarterbacks. I like it. I really do, but I need to give the edge to Atlanta here in this Would You Rather.
See, I thought it was easy. Thought it was a home run. I would have agreed with you, Jared, because I was thinking Atlanta. I figured, you get the Panthers. That's just 2 wins easy right there. You don't even count them really in your schedule. And that's the Saints. Who knows what's going on there? The Bucs are really your only competition. But what really threw me off here is Justin said schedules aside. We're looking strictly at the moves, Jared. Just strictly rosters. I think I'm going to go Chicago Bears. With all the offseason moves they made this offseason, you mentioned it. You got Keenan Allen. You already had DJ Moore, who, correct me if I'm wrong, in my opinion, he's a top 15 wide receiver in this league, if not right in the bottom of the top 10. Aside from that, you amped up your offensive line. That defense was already good. And if I'm looking at the Chicago Bears and Atlanta Falcons, let's be honest, rosters aside, I got to look at the head coach, and neither of these head coaches impressed me at all. But Arthur Smith, I'm going to trust a guy who doesn't know how to use Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson to actually work something out with a 35-year-old Kirk Cousins who has no Achilles at the moment. In my opinion, an Achilles is almost a career ender. Sorry, Justin. It's really just in my opinion. I haven't seen it done. Maybe the ayahuasca helps out, but I'm not a believer in you bounce back from an Achilles like that. I think it at least takes a year or 2 till you finally at least are almost 100%. And aside from that, you're having the number 1 pick, whoever it is, whether it's Jaden Daniel, Caleb Williams. It should really only be between those 2, and that's a personality thing, but it's probably Caleb. And I'd rather have the mobile kid who has a rocket of an arm, and we already know Kirk Cousins, only thing he's good at is stealing money with all these guarantees he gets. I need his agent. But all things aside, looking at this roster, I think the Chicago Bears are where you run away with it if you're not looking at the schedules. When you look at the schedules, I gotta agree with you, Jerg. It is the Atlanta Falcons because Detroit Lions in your division as the Bears, it ain't looking hot.
Now, I know you said for the coaches, does it change your mind at all if you say that Raheem Morris is now the Falcons head coach?
That's
Because
right.
Arthur Smith is
Forgot
gone.
about it. Oh my
Yeah.
God. So it does change my mind a little bit, but still gonna go with the Bears because it's for Raheem Morris. He's a great coach, man. He is. But this is his second go about. I'm not really a big guy of rinse and repeat. And aside from that, he's a defensive guy. So let's see what happens. Kirk Cousins, he really shined under offensive head coaches. So let's see what happens. But I'd have to go with Chicago Bears still.
Well, even if we do ignore, I didn't even necessarily look at schedule, but just even talking about division, I still would give that bit of an edge to the Falcons because I think there are defensive things that while the Chicago Bears started playing a lot better in this, I don't want to say second half, maybe last third of the season defensively, that was still a team that had a lot of underperforming pieces on that side of the ball. And this is an Atlanta Falcons team that, you got to say, was very admirable in a lot of their defensive performances. That defense, if they were given a better quarterback, could have won a few more games and was in a much better spot. This team has Jesse Bates and A.J. Terrell as two of its leading men when it comes to the defensive backfield. A solid front seven. There's no superstar, which I think would be the big thing. Whereas the best individual player on either of these teams' front sevens is Montez Sweat on the Chicago Bears. But I think the team system and what Raheem Morris can do for a defense to get guys to perform, guys here, there are a lot of veterans on this defense. And I think for a veteran defensive team, they needed a guy like a Raheem Morris to come in. And I think the offense can figure itself out. Look, the three of us agree that Kirk Cousins is the greatest, money launderer in NFL history. But that aside,
More money than Tom Brady.
Right? But that aside, he's shown that he can throw the football at least a little bit. And this is not the best individual talent he's ever going to be throwing to. We know who that belongs to. It's Justin Jefferson easily, baby. But in terms of maybe all around, Bijan Robinson is better than any running back he ever had, respectfully. I think Bijan's ceiling is better than what Dalvin Cook was in Minnesota, his ceiling of what he can be. And now there might actually be an offensive scheme that lets Bijan be the main back, not the decoy Arthur Smith. You have Kyle Pitts, who, if he can return to it, could be that, Pro Bowl caliber tight end that he showed us he could be in year one. Drake London could be a very fantastic wide receiver there. I think there's still a lot of potential for this team. And when it's not Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke, sorry, Taylor, I think the pieces are there for this to be a respectable team. I'll say the Falcons. I think the Falcons are a sneaky team. I'm not saying I'm in love with what they have. I think that they're far from perfect, but there's a lot there. This is a team I think has been waiting to be able to have something tangible there for a couple seasons now. And I think this could be that team. So that being said, but hey, healthy discourse. We love to see it, ladies and gentlemen. So we move on from the games. Justin, that was a fantastic Would You Rather. It's a nice little, we gotta get the people ready for the full year of games that we have coming up here. More Would You Rathers, more Fact or Fictions, more Trivias. And we're going to bring in an extra game or two, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry. We've kind of been like in the worst of it, but we will have an extra game or two here for the offseason going into this 2024 season. We'll have plenty of fun. Speaking of fun, boys, let's get straight to it. The Sports Agents of Chaos NFL 2024 Free Agency Recap, Part 1. So, like I mentioned at the top of the program, this is going to be less quantity. Well, I'm projecting ahead of what we could be doing next time. Less quantity, but perhaps more quality. So what we're going to be doing in this is we broke down the free agency signings into three different sections of, moves that we saw. The signings that we loved, the 50-50 picks that, could be here, could be there, and the pick that we just did not like so far looking at moves that we have seen. So that being said, we have it right there at the bottom. We're going to start with the signings that we loved. So as our guest of honor, the first ever guest in podcast history and the first ever guest host in podcast history, Bars, we're going to throw this to you first. The first signing that you loved in this free agency period.
I'd say the first signing that I loved, it's weird because it was a signing, but it was more of a trade than a signing, but he got signed from the trade. But regardless, it was Joe Mixon. I think that was a great move by Houston. They knew that Cincinnati was going to release him, and they said, hey, we're going to throw you a 6th-round pick or the 7th, whatever it was, and, give us the rights to sign him. And that I think that was a good recovery move because everyone knows they were on the hunt for Saquon Barkley. And once they lost him to Philadelphia, God damn it still hurts to say that. But once they lost him to Philadelphia, they pivoted and got Joe Mixon, who I'll bet he's not the receiver that Saquon is. He's a much better running back than Dameon Pierce ever was, who ruined my fantasy league, but whatever. And also, it's a good replacement for Devin Singletary as well. So I think Joe Mixon, he's that guy you need at the goal line, and he's proven he can be a number one running back. He may be on the back nine of his career, but I think that's going to provide a little punch to this offense that's going to have the defense play off a little bit more and open lanes and opportunities for CJ Stroud to take over. So that's my number one first signing that I think was a great move for Houston.
I don't blame you. It would not surprise me if we have a little bit more Houston in this section, even maybe in the 50-50 ones, depending on it, because Houston, the Texans, they're not wasting any time. And this is what you love to see. You love to see a team like them, young quarterback on the rookie contract, have the potential. They're probably going to lose a piece or two because they did lose a guy in this free agency. But if they make the right moves, they can easily retain it because, pre-2023 season, a lot of people thought the Jaguars were going to have the AFC South on lock for at least a handful of years. Not long-term, but maybe 2-3 years. And that script flipped really fast, 6-7 months later. Now this is looking like 3 teams can compete for the top spot in this division. And the Jags may need to settle with not being maybe second at best because this Houston team is going for it. Justin, your quick thoughts on Mixon, Bars highlighting that, and then your first selection of a free agency signing that you really liked in this period so far.
I actually love the Mixon move. I've been off the Mixon train for a little while now. I had him in my dynasty league. I thought his efficiency was rough, but it's not for nothing. It had a lot to do with that offensive line that didn't really work for the last few years in Cincinnati. They're still trying to fix that. It's still a major issue there. So hopefully they can get that fixed and get Joe Burrow. I thought it was an excellent move for the Texans because it fit such a perfect need for them. Now you take a ton of pressure off your young running back in Dameon Pierce. He's got no pressure being the number 2 guy. He excelled at it when he was a rookie. And Joe Mixon is just a veteran that you could put into a playoff caliber team and get good efficiency. He's like that. He's like the player that you could like squeeze blood from a stone from. Like he's a hardened veteran. You will get every ounce of everything out of Joe Mixon. And honestly, I got to stick with the Texans, guys. How about Danielle Hunter?
Yeah.
What a signing that was. I mean, to put him on the other side of that defensive line, and they're going to be a nasty team. Like they went almost all in with their moves this season. And to sign Danielle Hunter to a 2-year deal, by the way, which also is very shrewd because he comes off right when they have to make a decision about some quarterback that I don't know if we've ever heard of, CJ Stroud, who's coming off one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen. I mean, this is going to be a nasty defensive line. This is going to be a nasty offense. Don't forget that they were really banged up again last year also. So if that offensive line can get healthy, this is going to be a good team next year.
Indeed. And I don't blame you. I was hinting at that. If you weren't going to pick it with yours, Justin, I was going to go with it because Danielle Hunter, 2-year deal, big 2-year deal here because the guaranteed money, basically nearly the entire deal itself is guaranteed, which I'm sure was very lucrative. Plus going to Texas, a tax-free state, a lot lined up there. And this is a team where Danielle Hunter could be that veteran presence. He's not shown any signs of slowing down. He's still a fantastic pass rusher, can still get to the quarterback with not even just consistency. This dude can get and break a game open here potentially, at least once, maybe twice in a season. And the Texans kind of needed that. They needed that definitive force. Yes, they had some good sack production last year, but they needed that definitive force, that big name there. And Danielle Hunter provides that in spades. You both hitting on the Texans so far. I think if you it's no hyperbole to say the Texans are probably one of, if not the early winner here in free agency when we just look at the deals that have happened over the last week plus. Before I give my guy Bars, any comments on Danielle Hunter?
I gotta agree with everything Justin said. I mean, and like you said, Jerg, getting that certified pass rusher to get to the quarterback, right across from Will Anderson, and also just a vet to build up Will Anderson as well, because you can see he has a bunch of potential, and you could tell he's going to become one of the best pass rushers in the game, especially now that he could get some double teams taken off of him, because all the offensive coordinators are going to focus on Danielle Hunter. So, and like you said, it's a massive deal, guarantees, but every single one of those dollars is worth it. You got to love what Houston's doing. We spoke a lot about all the moves that Chicago made in the offseason to build up for whoever their quarterback is with the number 1 pick. Houston's doing the same thing, except they already have their quarterback. So now they've made their signings to hold who they can, and now they're solidifying their defense as well as just opening up their offense with that Joe Mixon signing. It's a great offseason, man.
100%. Houston, you don't just have our attention. You don't just have basic attention. You have the full attention. Houston is about to become a problem for the AFC as a whole. Oh, man, that team is looking dangerous. Well, we mentioned a team that is surrounding a young, talented quarterback. Let me talk about a team here that, despite the fact that they, the quarterback situation is something there, they did a little bit here to beef up the defensive side because, they made it to the playoffs with, I'll just say below average to be nice, quarterback play last year. Will they get that again? Will they finally get average play again? I don't know. But what I do know is that the Pittsburgh Steelers added to that linebacking core. Guys, I love that Patrick Queen signing by them. 3 years, $41 million for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you talk about every dollar being worth the bars. That is going to be a contract well worth it when Patrick Queen. Oh, my God. I know they re-signed Raekwon Smith. I know, before official free agency opened up, they had re-signed their defensive tackle to that big deal. Man, the Baltimore Ravens not finding a way to keep Queen there some way, shape, or form is, to me, one of those things where there's still going to be a good defense, but you're losing a guy who's supremely talented like a Patrick Queen. Ever since they drafted him late in the first round, the kid from day one on that team was a fixture in the defense, a consistent force there, and now he's going to play that role for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of interdivision moving around in this offseason, a lot of people have pointed out, and Patrick Queen was one of them, going from the Ravens to the Steelers. I think the tackling ability of this kid is so natural. He can get to the quarterback a little bit. He's not one of those guys that's, he's not going to get 6, 7, 8, 9 sacks a season, but he kind of can, just be that consistent force there for your team. And when you need to, use that front seven to really get something going, he can do that. He can stop running backs getting to the second level at a good pace. I just love Patrick Queen, man. He's one of the guys that from his draft class, I loved him coming out. Love the fact that he's performed so well up to his first round pedigree, and he's going to be joining the Steelers defense that, you want to talk about being able to be, and Rick and I were, funny enough, on not an NFL pod, but on a different pod, we were talking about this, becoming a role star. Being a star in your role, that's what Patrick Queen is going to be on this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. He doesn't need to stand out as a star because we know who the stars on that defense are. It's TJ Watt being number 1, and probably you could say safety, old buddy, former Miami Dolphin. Why am I forgetting his name?
Minkah.
Yes, those are two of the biggest names on the Steelers defense. He could be the third best guy on a given day for Pittsburgh. That's all he needs to be, and he could do that really well. I just love the signing overall for Pittsburgh. They add a strength. Linebacking for the Steelers, while it was good last year, I think this team from years back when Devin Bush, he had a breakout rookie year. He just never was able to follow it up. They've kind of been looking for that guy to be that presence in that linebacking core, I think, since. And I think Patrick Queen could be the guy to fill in that role here.
Let me tell you, Jerg, I got to agree with you. That's worth every single dollar. And aside from the on-field stuff, let's be honest. Everyone knows who Patrick Queen is. They know what he's about. He's just all-caliber linebacker. It's what he does for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's already openly said he's ready to play the villain. And you know what? I feel like that's something the Pittsburgh Steelers, we know that won the Super Bowls, that's something they're missing. There's no steel curtain like it used to be. And he's cursing out all of the Ravens fans. He's telling them, Yaka, shut the F up. He's saying, I don't care about you. It's insane. He already gave up on them, basically. And that's honestly, as a Steelers fan, you love to see that because you just stole your rivals. It's basically the Saquon Eagles and Giants thing right now, except it's in the AFC North. It's that, and that rivalry might be even worse. And I'm biased with mine. I think mine's worse, but regardless, it's just insane what he's going to do. And he's bringing that leadership to the field. And that's something that they're missing. He even said that he knows he's there to fill Ryan Shazier's shoes. Like you said, Jerk, it's just something that was missing in that linebacker core that Patrick Queen fills. And he doesn't need to be the top player, but he can be the top player. So imagine that. Like you said, TJ Watt, Patrick Queen, Imagine they're all on their best day. What offense is going to get through that? It's insane. You're not going to run the ball for sure, and you're not even going to have a chance to throw the ball either. So I think it's a great move. I think you're going to see crazy things happening with this Steeler defense now that they have an offense that could kind of function, but I don't want to get too deep into that because I know at some point it may get mentioned later.
Indeed, it will. I'm sure in some way, shape, or form we'll bring it up here at the end of it. But Justin, any thoughts before I move on to my second signing that I really liked?
No, you guys said it all. Patrick Queen was, it was an excellent move.
Yeah, 100%. And just a 3-year deal too for a guy. He's going to hit back free agency here in a couple years, has one more chance to get a big contract, and it would not surprise me if he gets paid even more than this in terms of an AAV. Patrick Queen is going to be good in this league for a while. All right, my second signing that I liked here, a guy who kind of fell by the wayside over the last 2 seasons here when he left the team that he was originally drafted by and was a dynamite for that team. But now he's going to a squad here just for a year. But I think there's a chance here. Look, this team needed more wide receiving depth going into it, even with the success they had last season. They needed a guy, and if the connection could be there with this kid, we might see a couple deep balls here. Running the AFC West once again, Kansas City Chiefs, Marquise Hollywood Brown is the second signing that I really liked in this free agency period, boys. If either of you may have this as a 50-50 later, I don't necessarily blame you, but the reason why I like it is because 1 year. It's not the 3-year commitment they gave to Marquez Valdes-Scantling a few years ago. It's not drafting a kid who you have high expectations for and you definitively have him for 4 years. It's not trading for a former first-round pick who has a couple years left and he's basically become a negative on your team more than a positive. This is a 1-year deal for a guy that has some success in this league, over 3,600 career yards through the air, 28 career receiving touchdowns for him. And let's be real here, he kind of got a raw deal in Arizona because the expectation was that he was supposed to help out Kyler Murray and that offense. Kyler Murray gets hurt towards the end of his first season there, and he basically doesn't have Kyler for a majority of his second season there. I think Marquise Brown could have maybe been a little bit better there had he A, had Kyler, and B, not had to deal with the coaches. Because all due respect, I know Gannon superseded all expectations, aka the dude still has his job at this point, which he was looking like a one and done last offseason. I think with a guy who can figure out how to use talent like Andy Reid can and that offensive coordinator crew, I think with Mahomes throwing him the ball, easily the best quarterback he's ever had throwing the ball to him. And the fact that it's the expectations of Travis Kelce is there. He doesn't have to worry. And Rice, he broke out in the postseason last year. He doesn't need to be – he can be the third receiving option on this team. And I think that's the key for some of these guys. Go somewhere where it doesn't need to be on your shoulders, but you can start out every few games. I think Hollywood Brown has a chance to be able to do that in Kansas City. And look, it's not like we're talking about a 31, 32-year-old that is going somewhere for a year. He's 26. He's 26 years old with this much NFL experience. That's a pretty good one for the Chiefs, I think. Justin, I'll throw it to you first. What do you think?
I loved it. I mean, he's exactly what they kind of need. He's the best receiver I think that they've had on the roster since Tyreek Hill left. I'm not saying he is Tyreek Hill, but let's face it, his style of play is very similar. And when he was in Baltimore, all he was doing was getting the long ball. Now, he did have an issue that we saw with the Chiefs last year, in which was drops. Ball's hitting him in the hands as he's running into the end zone. He cleaned it up a bit last year, but he didn't have the same kind of opportunity. So it's going to be interesting to see. He is on arguably the best team with the best quarterback. So we're really going to see what he has to offer. It'll be interesting to see how far he could take this offense in terms of points, because it was a disappointing outing for the offense itself last year, even though they won a Super Bowl. But I thought it was a very interesting signing for them. I thought it was a very good move for them.
Yeah. And by the way, just looking at his stats from last year too, and again, this kind of has to do with maybe the scheming was lacking, maybe not. Of the 51 catches he had last year, 32 of them went for first downs. And for a Kansas City Chiefs team that at the end of last season was really struggling to get the ball moving, if you have a guy you can consistently throw the ball to help you reset the downs, that's a pretty big thing. And again, just 1 year. No long-term commitment, I think, is the big thing for Kansas City. 1 year, they could keep on doing this if they want to. Or like you said, if they really like the kid, you sign him long-term. He's turning 27 in June, so pre-happy birthday, Hollywood Brown. there's some future if they want it to be, and that's the beauty of it. If you're Kansas City, Bars. Before Justin gives his second guy, any further comments you want to make?
Nah, man, he just I second everything you guys say. He just brings an element of speed that they've been missing, and I find it a perfect fit. I expect them to re-sign him after this year for sure.
There it is. So, Justin, your second name on the list of signings you really liked in this free agency period.
So it's got to be a signing, right?
I mean, Bars kind of went trade-ish. Depending on what I might pick in my last one, mine kind of includes somewhat of a re-signing, maybe. I don't know. Like, if you want to be flexible with it, you can. Like, I'm not going to say no to it.
Whoops,
Because-
didn't mean to break the rules.
And no, that's okay. That's okay. 'cause
Bars rules get broken every week on the
This
show.
is,
we're being
this
honest.
is
chaos.
if that's the case, then this fits into that niche perfectly. And I'm gonna bring up your boys, Bars. I'm gonna bring up that Brian Burns trade. I thought that was an excellent trade. They got him
Thank
for nothing. They put him along the other side with
Kayvon Thibodeau.
names that I can't remember all day today, and they all of a sudden they have one of the nastiest defensive lines in the league. I mean, really, it almost kind of makes it a shame that they traded Leonard Williams. But I mean, I guess they could easily move to a 3-4 now, and they're going to need to double team literally everyone on that defensive line. So, I mean, between Dexter Lawrence is there too. Like, let's not forget, this is an unbelievable defensive line right now. It's going to be interesting to see because this Giants team was so back and forth. They had such lopsided first 2 years for Daboll. They were really good, and then they were really disappointing. It's going to be very interesting to see what they turn out this year. And if it's not something that they love, is this it for Daboll? After 2.5 years, 3 years? Really, it's an interesting point. An interesting point in their time frame right now.
Right.
But, I mean, it's not like he's not getting the help he needs because Brian Burns is an excellent. This is a guy that was supposed to be traded for 2 first-round picks.
Yes.
They got him for what?
Each of the last 2 deadlines, there were rumors of Burns being traded for 2 first-round picks.
I mean, look, maybe we don't know anything. Maybe it's just a rumor. But
I think if you've heard it for 2 years in a row, I think there's something there.
I think it was confirmed, that rumor. The past deadline, I'm almost positive was confirmed.
So I'll go real quick here because this has to do with Bar's teams, and then I could transition to his second and then third guy here. Look, Burns, I think, is the kind of thing the Giants need. And to be fair, Justin, they traded for the rights. He could have just chosen not to. They had to pay the man, so I think it counts. But no, it was a phenomenal signing right there for the Giants. Like, just you have Kayvon Thibodeau already. You have Dexter Lawrence. That's the makings of a great defensive line. Now you just add another guy. Like you said, you arguably have to double team 2 of the guys. You have to double team 2 guys on that defensive line. You have to choose who to double on every single play. If only one of them could play offensive line, then you never have to trot out Evan Neal there ever again. But that aside, just speaking defensively, that is an amazing addition for the Giants there. Like, just what more can you say when you add a talent like Brian Burns to your team? And like you said, fleeced the Carolina Panthers. You got him for a bag of balls and a bag of chips at this point. Like, my God, the Giants just well done, well done by the GM there.
There's not many times they make me proud. This was one of them. It was just a great day. Well, it wasn't a great day. It was like I was that Anchorman scene when he says he's in a case of glass emotions because I was just so heartbroken about the Saquon news. And then this news drops. I was like, so I don't know. It's kind of great, kind of horrible. But it definitely softened the blow because you saw what Joe Shane did. He took that money from non-premium positions such as the running back and safety and turned them into premium positions, which ended up with Brian Burns being signed. Some people are arguing he may have been signed a bit too much, but what I say is look at the stats he had with almost little to no extra help. Yes, he had Derek Brown there, but you double team Derek Brown, you double team Brian Burns. That's it. You're good. Carolina Panthers, who are they? It's me, you, and Justin in some jerseys. That's basically it. So, I think it was a great signing because aside from this, everyone's calling it out that, yes, we did finally get a legitimate pass rusher across from Kayvon Thibodeau. it's now gonna open it up for both of them, because now we're talking two young talents. One, Brian Burns, I believe, is only 25, and we just signed him for a 5-year contract. So you got your one edge rusher solidified. We got Kayvon Thibodeau, who just came off a great year with 13 and a half sacks. So I expect to re-sign Kayvon Thibodeau as well. So you have your two edge rushers. You already re-signed Dexter Lawrence last year. And aside from that, what gets hidden in all this is you still got Azeez Ojulari there as your depth edge rusher. Yes, he's rarely ever healthy, but I think that's because we try making him the number one guy or the number two guy, regardless, a starter this entire time. When coming into the draft, people forget he was injury prone anyway. So I think having this whole battalion, I guess you'd say, of just rushing in the edge rushers and pulling them out and keeping them fresh, it's going to show dividends. And aside from that, we have our new defensive coordinator who he's not going to have Kayvon backing down to try and play zone coverage, which never made sense to me. I loved Wink Martindale and what he did with the defense that first year. That second year was highly questionable, though.
Yeah, and last thing to your point there, Bars, and I feel like this has been a thing for a lot of the signings we brought up here. Guys, whether it's the signing themselves or even helping for the team to let other people have less pressure. You mentioned Azeez Ojulari. Let's not forget, coming out of his rookie season, did he not finish third? Was he not top 3 for defensive rookie of the year voting his rookie season?
He was up there.
Maybe just outside of it. Maybe just outside. But like this is a guy in Azeez Ojulari. You want to talk about zero expectations, zero worries for the kid. Like it's two guys that can do all the work. It's Dexter Lawrence in the middle. Azeez Ojulari could get 9 sacks just based off the fact that no one's going to be looking to get him. It's going to be him. It's going to be them focusing on his teammates. Like that, even if Burns himself only has like 8-9 sacks, we need to like figure out the sacks help created stat in some way, shape, or form. Like how many sacks are you creating for your teammates? Because Brian Burns might lead the league in that after this season because he's going to create a lot for his teammates there. So that being said, we've all listed, well, Bars is about to list his second guy here and then on to his third. But first, number 2, Bars, who do you got as the second signing you really loved in this free agency period?
The second signing I really loved is, I got some good news for you, Justin. It's the Mike Williams signing that just happened this afternoon before we got on here. I think it was the move they had to make. I think if they didn't make this signing, it would have just made Joe Douglas look foolish. Yes, it's a little high because it could reach a $15 million, but that's if he hits the incentives. And I don't have all the details of the incentives, but all I know is if he hits those incentives, you're more than willing to pay him $50 million because he's going to go for way more in the next year. The only real question mark with Mike Williams is his health. He's coming off an ACL this year, but hey, you have Garrett Wilson there, so you don't really have to rush it in. And I believe you still have Allen Lazard, who, let's be honest, he's not great, but he's a body who could play the first couple weeks until Mike Williams gets reacclimated to game speed. So you gave Aaron Rodgers another big target. This kid has speed, or at least even if he has 80% of the speed, it's speed you didn't have on that field. I think it was a great signing, and you had to go get a guy like that. It just opens up the number 10 pick for you guys. So kudos to you guys for actually making the move, along with the move they made earlier as well.
I'll be brief with my thoughts on this. I love it whenever there's incentive-based contracts because people are like, oh, they didn't sign him for a lot. Maybe this, that. Like, if he hits the incentives, that means he's helping your team. Like, you want him to hit those incentives so that he can help your team out here. Like, this was a big one. And like you said, Bars, we don't know the exact details of it yet because it was only just broken a couple hours ago. I have to assume that part of the incentives, I think the main part is games played and downs played, and the rest of it will be something between maybe catches and yards to an extent. But if he's hitting these incentives, that means he's on the field for this team. And the Jets kind of need that when it comes to the wide receiving room. Like you mentioned Allen Lazard there, Bars. Allen Lazard is basically, if they're both 100%, Allen Lazard is Mike Williams light.
He's a body. That's it. Just throw someone out on the field. So,
Justin, your thoughts about your Jets move here before Bars gives us his third guy?
I loved it. I mean, I just assumed that it was essentially the same kind of deal as Tyron Smith, in which the more time he plays, the more money he gets. So if that is the case, I mean, look, I hope that we pay both Tyron Smith and Mike Williams their max contracts this year. That would be fantastic. I would be A-okay with that. I thought it was a great move. They needed another number 2 receiver. Lazard was not it. He was not helping. They were either too young and inexperienced last year at receiver, or too old and breaking apart because Lazard looked horrendous. And I understand there's a huge difference between Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson. I get it. But you can't have that big a drop off based on your quarterback. I mean, he was just dropping balls left and right. So, yeah, I mean, let's go Jets, man. It's a good move.
All right. Bars, your third name here, third and final name for all three of us coming up here in signings we liked.
You know, I saved Brian Burns for the end, but since we already talked about him, I figured let's go with another Giant. And I think the John Runyon signing was a great signing by my New York Giants. I'm not here just to say we had a great offseason. I don't think we had a great offseason yet, but we're making the right moves, trending the right way. And John Runyon, I think, was almost as big, if not I don't want to say bigger than the Brian Burns, but it's almost as big because you're talking about a certified stud at guard. The only question about it is, are the Giants going to ruin him? Because we do have a history so far of ruining certified guards, and then they go somewhere else and be great. But John Runyon has been the number one thing is he's been on the field for the last 3 years. Don't believe he's missed a single game or a single snap. And that's something the Giants need because health is always a question mark with this offensive line in New York. I'm guessing it's the MetLife turf. Who knows? But aside from that, also, the way they structured the contract, he's only getting paid $3 million his first year. There's $9 million in the second year, and there's potential out if that curse does happen. But fingers crossed, from my mouth to God's ears, it's going to be a great addition to this offensive line that everyone knows has been questionable for all these years. So to get a certified stud like that, I think we're making the right moves.
Hey, you can never critique adding an offensive lineman because that's what you need in this league.
Always.
You need those guys. You need those guys to help protect your quarterback, especially a quarterback coming off an injury season. So that's a good one right there. I'm not going to argue that at all.
Hopefully, a new upcoming young quarterback. We're trying to follow the Houston mold.
Maybe. Bo Nix to New York, maybe? No.
I wouldn't hate it.
Well, it wouldn't be young. How close is he to Daniel Jones' age? Anyways, Justin, any thoughts on the Runyon signing before you give your third and final name of this section?
It was a good move. It was someone that I was looking at eyeing for the Jets at the time, but I'm not upset with their offensive line moves that they made. So I'll try and not be biased. I'm not going to pick them with my next one, but
so who will you pick?
That's a good question, Jerg, and I'm torn because there's two signings that I really, really liked, but I don't want to insult my man Bars here because one of them is Saquon Barkley. I thought that was an excellent.
Go for it, man. Please go. Don't let me ruin a good time.
No, but you know what? I do want to shout out a very underrated signing, and that was Chase Young to the Saints. He's on a 1-year prove-it deal, but if he can come back and be anything like he was in his rookie season, that's already a very good defense. And they were missing some serious edge rushing there. If they keep that defense strong, I mean, that defense kept them in playoff contention last year. Let's face it, that offense was struggling all year round. They were banged up. Derek Carr didn't look great for stretches. That defense was nasty last year. If they can get what we thought Chase Young was going to be with the number 2 pick, if they can get anywhere close to that out of this 1-year deal, they're going to be a really tough team to play. You are not going to want to face the Saints at all this this regular season. I don't think you play anyone in the offseason, but that is a very underrated signing. And I mean, in terms of Saquon, I mean, it's just an upgrade on DeAndre Swift, really. I mean, DeAndre Swift was very good for them. And if Saquon can stay healthy, in my mind, it's like
it's a big if.
Well, it's always a big if, but it's not like DeAndre Swift was all that healthy of a guy also. And he played most of the games there last year. So it's like a Mario Mushroom upgrade for them. They could really kill it with Saquon there.
Nah, real brief, just to speak on it. It completely unbiased as not a fan of the Giants. I think it was a great move by the Eagles. Did they overpay him a little bit? Yes, but he was kind of that last piece they needed for that offense. You lost Jason Kelce, who, let's be honest, maybe one of the greatest centers of all time. So to have a running back who can make up for that offensively and now playing behind the best offensive line he's probably played against, you're also once again opening the lanes for two of the best wide receivers in the league, and Dallas Goedert is hurting me to say all this, but
Yeah.
it's a great offense. So you're making it easier on Jalen Hurts, who might not be as good as people think, but you're making it easier on him, and it opens up those RPOs. So it was a great signing by the Philadelphia Eagles. Whatever.
And also not to harp too much on it because it's not. I mean, shout out to them getting Devin White on a 1-year deal. He was another one of the great 1-year signings. I feel that helps shore up that defense. But just Philly did some stuff. It was some subtlety to an extent, but like Philly had like a go about business offseason. They know that they severely underperformed last year, and the expectations are high in 2024 because I don't remember it off the top of my head, but like the last 10 Super Bowl losing quarterbacks, only one of them made it back to the Super Bowl, or only two of them made it back. I think like first time quarterbacks, I should say, like first time Super Bowl losing quarterbacks. How many of them made it back to the Super Bowl over the last like 8 or 9 of them?
I don't think
So
any
it's
of them
like
made it back because they were blowing up that stat when Joe Burrow lost.
Yeah. So, and now it Hurts to the list as of now. Like, you need to consider that if you're Philly, whether Hurts is the guy or not, you got to beef up the team. They did a lot of that this offseason. The expectations, I know it was a rough end for the season, but the expectations are going to be high in Philly once again. And I think for good reason. But my last thing is not for Philly. I'm very torn here between two signings. I think we're gonna go a little bit of defense on here. But I love the Leonard Floyd deal with the San Francisco 49ers. He returns to the NFC West on a 2-year deal, $20 million. I think it might be able to go up to 22 or 24, I saw, due to incentives or whatever. A great deal. This is a guy who struggled a little bit at the start of his career with the Chicago Bears. What a shock. And then he moves to the Rams, was on that Super Bowl winning team. Over the last 4 seasons, he's accumulated 40 sacks. He's just a consistent presence on a defensive line over the last few years for multiple teams, multiple playoff teams. And I think, for me, aside from secondary, when it comes to the 49ers the last few years, aside from Nick Bosa, like, yes, you have a couple other guys getting sacks, but I think San Francisco, some of their, draft issues that they've had of getting a guy next to Nick Bosa, right? Like Javon Kinlaw was a big swing and a miss for them. He just never developed into what they hoped that he could have been, or what people would have hoped he would have became, because he was replacing DeForest Buckner there. They get the guy, I think Hargraves in last year's free agency. He was good year one. He wasn't double-digit sacks, but he was still good year one. I think this is a guy, if he could get 9-10 sacks next to a Nick Bosa, just help his defensive line more. San Francisco, the NFC West, you're kind of going in between, because some of these teams that missed the playoffs made really good moves, but like then you get San Francisco, who this is a really good move for them. We're kind of shifting back and forth between, is the NFC going to be wide open, kind of like the AFC was last year, or is it just going to be top 2, top 3 teams again, right? Because those were the two conferences. AFC was wide open last year, in theory. NFC, we know who the top 2 were. Oh, well, we know who number 1 was. Number 2, someone had to join them at some point. Like, that's what it ended up being. So we'll see what the story of the NFC is. But this is one of the ones where it's like, thanks, San Francisco, going for it. So, and that is the benefit you get of paying, forget a rookie quarterback contract, a 7th-round pick quarterback contract is what you get. You got 2 more years of it, San Fran, so there it is. All right, boys, fantastic on the signings we loved. Let's talk about the signings that we were kind of fitty on. Signings that, they're fine. Maybe they could be, or they could go horribly wrong. It could be either or. We're just going to give 2 of these here really fast, and since it's on me, I'm going to just continue keep the train rolling and keep with the discussions. This first one might surprise people. We have mentioned this guy on numerous occasions on the show. On the first offseason we had, when we had a wheel with the Wheel of Chaos, we had a wheel of names we were expecting to take a leap going into not even 2023, it's 2022. And this guy just never took that leap we expected. He's going to a new team here, maybe a face in a new place. Maybe that helps him. But I got Gabe Davis as a 50-51 for me. Now, this doesn't have to do with the contract at all. I think the contract is relatively fair. 3 years, $39 million. It has a max value of $50 million. So, again, certain bonuses, incentives, etc. A lot of these deals have that kind of stuff in this free agency, it feels like. But the thing for me with Gabe Davis is that I could see it both ways. I could see if you maybe want to say that all of the offensive, as we could clearly see, instability, I don't think you're that stable when you fire a coordinator midway through the season. They had to figure things out for Buffalo in 2023 offensively. And Stephon Diggs was also getting frustrated, right? So I can see an argument where, okay, maybe it wasn't the best situation for Gabe Davis in 2023. I understand that. I'm hearing you. I would also argue back, you get a 4-touchdown game in the playoffs, there needs to be something in the regular season. It's been 2 full seasons have passed since that 4-touchdown game he had. and he never really became the bona fide number 2 there. He was number 2 just by the fact that no one else was as good as him aside from Stephon Diggs. Like, he was the number 2 by default, not the number 2 of becoming a number 2, like a T. Higgins to a Jamar Chase, this is years back, but like Adam Thielen was to Stephon Diggs in Minnesota. Like, he didn't become that. And you kind of need Gabe Davis to be that. And I look at the situation in Jacksonville is like the number 1 receiver there. Shout out to Christian Kirk, the contract that changed everything in this league. Gabe Davis next to Christian Kirk. I mean, maybe he'll be fine, but I mean, if he wasn't able to break out next to Stephon, maybe you could say, yeah, Stephon demands the targets. Maybe it's a different situation. Spread the ball around more. Maybe Trevor Lawrence is your cup of tea compared to Josh Allen. This isn't 50-50 because I think I'm leaning on it failing. I'm leaning actually, like, if you needed to force me to make a choice, I'd actually lean towards the good side of this. But I still go back to the last 2 years, man. There just feels like there was something missed with Davis the last 2 years. And maybe he needs to be in a new place. So that's why this is a 50-50 for me. I still think the talent's there, but he needs to show it. You know, you can only do so much. You can only ride that 4-touchdown game forever for your career. And this needs to be a year where he breaks out for the Jaguars. So that's my selection personally. You boys can give your thoughts. And then, Justin, we're going to bring the circle around. So you will give your first 50-50 signing of this free agency period.
Yeah, I mean, I understood why they made the signing. I get it. He's kind of like a poor man's Calvin Ridley in that way. He'll fill the role that Calvin Ridley left when he departed for a massive contract to Tennessee. But you're right. I mean, there were bigger names out there. There were, I would assume, better fits than this. It's an interesting one for me. And my 50-50 one is got to be Aaron Jones. I like Aaron Jones. I'm an Aaron Jones guy. I've been drafting him on fantasy teams for years. I think he's been excellent for the Packers. And I get why you want to go to a rival. But in terms of Minnesota, I mean, just their offseason really as a whole, I don't get. I mean, it was a bad sign that they didn't sign Justin Jefferson for a long-term deal last year. And the rumor is they offered him $30 million a year. That's a wild number. It's an even crazier number in my mind to turn down. And if they don't sign him, sure, they'll probably franchise him. Yeah. I hate to see a situation where he's sitting out a year. That's not good. It's not good for the Vikings. It's not good for football in general. But I'm not really sure which direction this team is trying to move with a signing like Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones to me is, I'm ready to win right now. We know there are no more question marks. This is a veteran that we're going to bring in and we're going to make just kill it on our team because we already have so many weapons. They have Justin Jefferson, but what else do they really have? I know they have Jordan Addison. He played very well last year. What else? TJ Hawkinson was decent last year. Their offensive line was rough. Their running game went from one of the best running games to Dalvin Cook, to Alexander Madison, to Cam Akers, who can't stay healthy, to now Aaron Jones, who also can't stay healthy. There's nothing else there. There's no quarterback. The play calling last year was up and down.
Yep.
I'm not really sure which direction they're moving in. And now the defense that was pretty much devoid of all pieces 2 years ago just lost their best player. I know they were a little bit better last year, but it's not like they were a top defense last year.
Right.
And now they're losing their best player. So I don't know. I don't know which direction this Vikings team is trying to move in. Right. I've been wrong before. Let's check the receipts. Seattle, I was wrong, but I don't see it for the Vikings this year. I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the league, but I don't really see them making a playoff spot.
Well, I think it's telling. And again, I think this is more for a future episode for us to discuss here, but they did trade for another first-round pick, and I think it's a clear, obvious sign as to why they did that. So we're going to see.
If you're doing that, if that's your move, why are you paying Aaron Jones? I know it's a one-year deal, but what does Aaron Jones have to do to fit in for this? Are you just filling roster spots right now? Is this like a?
I think that, but also
we'll deal with it next year.
I like to support you on quarterback.
I like this as a 50-50 because I had this as my 50-50 as well. I agree with both sides. It depends what they do in the draft. It's as simple as that, because if they don't draft a quarterback, it's It's a horrible signing, like you're saying, Justin. Like, why is he there? He's there to fill a roster spot. Sam Darnold, can he make his job easier? Sure, but Sam Darnold, we know who he is. Their chances are he didn't learn much in San Francisco. Could he be a decent quarterback? Sure. Is he going to be a great quarterback? Hell no. So if they draft a rookie quarterback, you're trying to follow this mold that clearly Houston and Chicago are redefining in the league, where it's what the mold everyone wants to do because that's what Kansas City started. It's you make your offense as good as possible. So you're talking a rookie quarterback walking into an Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson, for the best weapons any quarterback could really walk into. You saw how great they made Kirk Cousins look. Is he going to look as good in Atlanta? I don't think so, injury aside. So I like it as a 50-50 pick because it either could be a god-awful signing or it could be a really smart signing to help a rookie quarterback. Also, just, I might as well jump into one of my 50-50 picks. I'm going to give two. One really quickly was previously mentioned. It was Chase Young. I'm 50-50 on that signing because it's 13 million guaranteed, but he had a neck injury. He's getting neck surgery, actually. It was just released today, but they knew about it and they felt good enough about it to make this signing. So let's see how it is. He hasn't lived up to that potential, which is why I'm seeing it as a 50-50 pick. But my 50-50 pick that I really think is, sorry, Justin, Tyrod Taylor for the New York Jets as a backup quarterback. I'm 50-50 about that because don't get me wrong, Tyrod has all the talent to be a great quarterback, but really, what are we doing here? We're backing up a quarterback who just got hurt with a quarterback who hasn't been healthy in like 8 years straight, basically. He's been hurt every single year. So, I love it because if Aaron Rodgers goes down, sure, we got maybe a game, maybe 2 games where we can hit Tyrod Taylor to cover us. But if Tyrod goes down, which is a high probability that we've learned now through the years, where are we going then? We're back to Zach Wilson again. So it was a good signing in terms of talent, but it's not what you guys really needed. Joe Flacco was still out there when Tyrod Taylor was signed. I would have gone with him, but it's a good signing because hopefully you never need Tyrod out there. So that's why it's my 50-50 pick.
There's a timeline out there. There's a timeline out there where the doctor did not jab Tyrod Taylor's ribs when he was on the Chargers.
Justin Herbert never came in.
And we would have had to wait for like 3 more weeks for Justin Herbert. I want to see how that timeline played out. Probably similar to this one, I say. No, I definitely hear you, Bars. Like, I actually like the Tyrod signing a little bit more because you need someone behind Aaron Rodgers. Like, you're hoping that Rodgers is way more healthy this year, obviously. But Tyrod Taylor, like, I like him. Like, I feel like, stop being mean. Stop being mean.
He's a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. I loved him on the Giants, but he's not what the Jets need. He's not.
He did. I didn't understand. I have a lot of Jets friends and family that were very excited about the Tyrod pickup. I didn't see it. I don't know. I mean, even when he's been on the field, when was the last time he was a relevant quarterback? Since he was in, was it San Diego at that? Were they not even in LA yet?
No, they were in LA.
They were in LA.
That was like the first year, I think.
Okay, since that punctured lung, and it's unfortunate, and I'm not rooting for it. He really hasn't been good. Even when he's on the field, he has not been the guy that we thought he could be when they traded for him in Buffalo, when they signed him in LA, when they signed him to, I don't know, literally every other team in the NFL, and where he's gotten hurt. He just, I didn't like it. I'm assuming they're going to draft a quarterback late in the draft. I think that's something that's on their radar. I know it's but it seemed like a waste of money to sign Tyrod Taylor for that much money. When realistically, how many plays did it take for him to get hurt last year in that Giants game? The first time he filled in 4 plays, he was immediately knocked out.
He played a couple plays.
He came back that quick.
He came back. Yeah,
He came back in that game and then didn't play in the next 3 weeks. Like, he was immediately just done. So I don't know what we're doing here. That's not the signing that I would make. And look, the issue that I have with the Jets right now, if I had an issue, is that it's seemingly everyone they've signed this year is a guy that maybe has some injury concerns. Yeah, if he stays on the field, he could be all right. Yeah. But when was the last time he stayed on the field? I love the Tyron Smith signing. Don't get me wrong. He hasn't played a full season in 6 years, 7 years?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I love Mike Williams. Mike Williams was excellent in LA. He is a huge receiver. I love the height. I love the speed. I love the route running. He's exactly what the Jets needed. But when was the last time he played a full season?
He's never played a full season. I'm
Right?
almost positive.
So, and what's his main injury that happens every year? He goes up for a ball, he comes down on his back, he can't play the rest of the year. So again, I like the signing. I like that it's very incentive laden, and if it works out, Joe Douglas is going to look like a genius. But what if it doesn't work out? Now what?
So did you just unintentionally make Mike Williams your other 50-50 signing?
I did not. I would never do that to the Jets. I don't put that energy out there. Everyone's going to be healthy, and they're going to be great, and they're going to win a Super Bowl, and I'm going to win $1 million too. Anyways, that's my next 50-50.
Yes. Bars gave both of his in quick successive order.
I am going to go offense here. I'm going to go with a running back, and I'm going to say Austin Eckler. I mean, it's a decent signing for them, but why? Why on both ends? I feel like couldn't Austin Eckler gotten more than 2 years, $11 million? Doesn't that seem pretty low for a guy that's been a perennial Pro Bowler for most of his career? I mean, really, he's been excellent there. And then, is he going to start? Is it going to be Brian Robinson? What do they have there offensively? I know they have a new coach. Marcus Mariota is the current starting quarterback there.
They brought Jamison Crowder back.
They're going to, okay, Jamison Crowder hasn't been relevant in 5 years. Like, I don't understand so much what they're doing there.
They got the number 2 pick.
Yeah, they'll draft a quarterback, but again, you're going to draft a quarterback for 2 years of Austin Eckler? Like, why not get some reps in with Brian Robinson? He was excellent last year for them. And I know you used basically a 1-2 punch, but let's get young. Let's use a late round pick on a highly touted running back. There's always a running back that falls. But they are going to somehow have the oldest and youngest starting skill position players in the league. They're going to have Marcus Mariota and a rookie quarterback, Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson, Terry McLaurin and Jamison Crowder, and Jahan Dotson. And Zach Ertz is their starting tight end. Like, I don't understand what they're attempting to do. And again, maybe they're just trying to fill roster spots and get another good draft pick. I mean, they had a decent offensive line last year. They had a decent run game. Maybe Eckler works out there. But I don't know. 2 years at 11 or 13. How much was it? 2 years, $11.43 million.
Yeah. So it's funny you go quick on the Commanders there real quick, Justin.
On both ends, by the way, because again,
I was just about to say because they got Cleveland Farrell, they got Dante Fowler Jr., Bobby Wagner.
Yeah. Like
I feel like they're trying to build a culture, I feel like, it's a new owner, Dan Quinn, new coach. I feel like he's trying to get guys that you would want, honestly, in your locker room. Bobby Wagner, who wouldn't want that guy? Zach Ertz, I think he's a good guy from the locker room.
Listen. I get it. And also, like, to me,
they're old, but they're locker room guys.
I'll say this, like, underrated signings. I love the Jeremy Chin signing for them for 1 year. I hate the fact that he had bad injury luck in Carolina. And I felt after his rookie season where he was second or third in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting, they just never figured out how to deploy him properly ever again. Like, I love some of the signings they made. It's just like, I'm sure you guys have seen the joke. It's like the Washington Commanders are spending the most money possible to put out the most mid-roster possible. Like,
that they are.
It's intriguing to say the very least. But like you said, Bars, maybe at the end of the day, what they're trying to do, they're just trying to bring in a culture. And it's going to be a rotating cast. Maybe some of these guys stay after the season, but maybe it's just going to be a rotating cast of a couple of these guys ended up, leave and you bring a few new people in next year, and it's then the next crop of rookies you have and you cultivate them. Are they doing an NHL way of building a team in the NFL? Never thought I'd see the day. Maybe
they did hire all people from outside the NFL.
And that's maybe I am going to start cheering for the Washington Commanders. Maybe someone on this show will actually be a real Commanders fan, unlike Rick. Anyways, that's a whole subsection. James will explain that after the show. So in terms of 50-50 signings, I mean, there's a couple guys I could hit here as well, but let me just go with like the guy. I know I kind of praised them before and said that they have a better shot than the Bears, but Kirk Cousins is still a 50-50 signing for me, mainly because that dude is not seeing all 4 years of this contract through. There's no way. Is he not turning 35 later this year? Quarterbacks are supposed to be falling off a cliff at some point. If Aaron Rodgers if Peyton Manning fell off a cliff, Tom Brady doesn't count. He's a mutant. If Aaron Rodgers got hurt, like, what is going to happen to Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, with all due respect? Like, the first 2 years of the deal, I think, are going to be fine. It's the last 2 years where I'm thinking about. And look, $180 million, $100 million guaranteed. You're telling me that $100 million is in the first 2 years alone? Because then if you could just cut him after year 2, okay, maybe. But this is at least a 3-year commitment to this guy. And look, you get the good Kirk Cousins performances and you get the bad Kirk Cousins performances. It's like Ryan Fitzpatrick is the Mendoza line of what quarterbacks do in a season. You could just divide their performances up in a batch of games. It is just absolutely crazy. Like, it's 50-50 to me. Is he a positional upgrade over what they had last year? Yeah. That's not a high bar. It's just not. So I think all things considered, you're going to see plenty of good Kirk Cousins this year. You will. You're going to get 303 yards and 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, and Drake London and Kyle Pitts and them are happy. And then you're going to get back Kirk Cousins, where he throws for 285 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and he is going to check it down to the tight end on 4th and 8 when he should be throwing the ball deep, something like that. I don't know, just a scenario. It's not like we've ever seen that happen in like an important playoff game or anything like that. Just throwing it out there. But no, I'm 50-50 on the Kirk Cousins thing, to be fully honest with you guys. It's both a positional upgrade, but also, God, that is like smack dab in the middle of top tier quarterback you could get. Poor Atlanta. I mean, it could be worse. You could be guaranteeing a quarterback that can barely throw the ball $230+ million, but who would do that in this league? Anyways, let's move on from that. The last signing we're all going to talk about, because we all gave our 2 here. Now it's 1. Boys, one signing that just quite simply, I did not like that, good sir. I'm not a fan of this signing in any way, shape, or form. Justin, I'm going to throw it to you first.
Oh,
What time did you just not like?
I basically use those for my 50-50s. I mean, I was just trying to be nice, I guess. Let's look. There's a few signings that I didn't really understand with that. I mean, we could say Gus Edwards. It didn't really make any sense for them to replace Gus Edwards, who's never really been a starter and also is coming off from major injury, if I'm not mistaken. And
he's had at least 1 or 2.
What?
He's had at least 1 or 2. Those Ravens running backs do get hurt a lot.
Yeah, and now he's going to be what looks like the starter in LA. I didn't really see why they would go about it that way. What about Russ? I mean, it's a major risk for the Steelers to sign Russ right now after coming off of what they torched Denver. I mean, I would have done it too. He offered me $294 million. I'm in. But that being said, it's a desperation move for the Steelers. And you could tell that they're desperate because they also immediately traded for Justin Fields. There doesn't seem to be a plan long-term for the quarterback there. I don't think they know what they're going to do. And that's how teams fall apart. This is going to be a very pivotal move for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because if it doesn't work out, we might start heading towards history here. And by history, I mean Mike Tomlin's first ever losing season.
Yep. And Justin, you mentioned the instability there. I believe, unless it happened under the radar and we didn't pick up on it, Tomlin is still not apparently signed past the 2024 season as well.
I thought I saw something about it, but I might be making it up.
If I'm wrong, fact check me, of course. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But because remember at the playoffs, there was the thing in the press conference where they tried to ask him, he walked off. Which Mike Tomlin, all due respect, answer the goddamn question. That just pisses me off. But
I get it. That's not what he was there to talk about.
You're paid by the league to answer questions. Anyways, moving on. I don't blame you for Pittsburgh there. Like I said it before the show, Ryan Tannehill would have been my worst signing if he had signed, but he hasn't signed yet. So X team, you're saved for now. But no, I don't blame you for picking Russell Wilson there, because it's also the stories that are coming out about him from the end of his Seattle time into Denver. Like, dude basically has his own office. You're a player, not a coach. Why do you basically have your own little office? Like, what are you doing? Like, Russell Wilson, does he just not understand how this comes off to his people? Like, is there some kind of psychological thing happening there, like a Dunning-Kruger effect or something? I don't know. I don't get it. Like, we need to study this, and it's very entertaining to say the very least. And hopefully, I'll never have to have the Danger Witch ever again. That's my main goal for this next season.
Wrong, by the way. It's not signed yet. Still.
So that's why I bring it up. So no, I don't blame you. All right, my signing that I didn't like. I have a couple names here that I'm kind of with you, Justin. It's like maybe they could have more so been 50-50s. I was kind of reaching for things I didn't like at this point. You just kind of have to like select. It's like, why did you not like this for whatever reason? If I have to pick one, I'm sorry to dunk on this team a little bit more here, but I just have to. Robert Hunt and the Carolina Panthers, $100 million at a guard that I think it was kind of a late bloomer in Miami. I don't even think he played a full season last year, if I'm not mistaken. I think he missed 4 or 5 games. Like, I understand you had to, and they paid 2 guards a good chunk of money here, by the way. So you spent $150 million on 2 total guard contracts. Now, one of them makes sense. I think Damian Lewis is the other one, only $50 million. Fine. $100 million. Like, Carolina, like, you're just continuing to show why I had issues with the GM hiring because their new GM was the guy who was the assistant before you fired the last guy. Like, the assistant GM can also have a hand in why things are bad. I don't know. I just don't get what things are happening in Carolina. A year ago, Justin, we had hopes in this team. Well, not a year ago because that was pre-draft, post-draft more so. But man, oh man, you want to talk about just everything turning on a franchise. Just not great, not great. So I'll put Robert Hunt. And I'm not saying this because like he shouldn't have taken the contract. Obviously, take the contract if it's given to you. But I'm saying from an organizational perspective, $100 million to a guard that we're not definitively saying right now. He got paid more than Dickerson did in Philly. And that dude has been a starter on a team that's made a Super Bowl. Yeah. I don't know. All right, Bars, your one, there's probably more than one, but your definitive signing you just did not like in this free agency cycle.
He was a 50-50 for you guys, but Gabe Davis, I just didn't like it at all. I don't see the benefit. I think he was overpaid, but to give a different one, just to not repeat over Gabe Davis again, another signing I really didn't like was Tony Pollard. I didn't see why. I get it. You lost Derrick Henry, but Tony Pollard is not the Derrick Henry replacement you need. Yes, they got Tajay Spears, who I think he's great, but Tajay Spears fits kind of more the Tony Pollard mode, in my opinion. He's not that bruiser back that you need. So, and also Tony Pollard not coming off a great season at all, and it's after a devastating injury. So is Tony Pollard ever going to be that player that he was when he was running with Zeke? Tony Pollard has shown he's good with a bruiser back when he's in that running back by committee. So I don't know. I think the Tennessee could have made a better move here. I'm not really sure what they're doing. I mean, yes, they did just also sign Calvin Ridley, so they're trying to make the offense better for Will Levis, but I just don't see the moves working out. I think they needed more offensively, more just everything.
Yeah, Tennessee's going to be a team. Bless whichever one of us gets to draft them in the mock here in a little over a month's time, Justin. But it's going to be one of these things where do they go? Because they've signed a couple of veterans here. They drafted Skoransky last year, which Tennessee Titans fans, if you exist, first off, you probably aren't watching the show considering all I've said about your team here over the history of this program. But if you are, like, let us know. Did he do good in his rookie year last year? I genuinely don't know. I'm not going to say he did good or bad. I just genuinely have no idea.
I'll say he did bad. I don't think he did.
So, like, you have the new head coach, which, as I called, they go with the complete opposite of what the guy before was. Ren Carthon is the GM there, correct? That's who the general manager is. Like, he obviously, like, he wants to try to figure out the vision with his team. I think we're all trying to figure out the vision on this team right now. Just saying. So
yeah, they don't got personality at all. Like, what's the offense? Are we run based? Are we pass based? What's the defense? Are we zone, man, press, rushers? What is the Tennessee Titans? I think they just needed to rebrand or something.
Yeah. Change the team name. No, probably not. They are getting a new stadium here in the next couple of seasons, which we'll see how that bad boy looks when it's actually created. Okay, that aside. All right, boys, that wrapped up the definitive free agent part. And, I had this ready, but we basically did all the New York football talk already throughout the course of all of these sections. So you kind of save us a little bit of time here, boys. But, everything wrapped up because you guys basically said all, like, the main signings and acquisitions so far for both your teams. Just a very quick, brief thing for both your squads. Justin, I'll throw it to you first. Like, obviously, we're pre-draft. Free agency, for the most part, is, a lot of the guys are signed, but there's still a little bit more. Are you expecting just a quick yes or no? Are you expecting anything, not big, but are you expecting the Jets to do like anything more significant here in the coming weeks? Or you think it's just going to be a lull until you see what the draft has in store for you?
Well, they are meeting with, I believe, Jadeveon Clowney tomorrow. So, yeah, I mean, there's a few things that I think they could do. There's no such thing as a complete roster. Every team needs to keep getting better. I think they do have cap space due to some restructuring that they did. I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled out another big move.
And kind of a overall summary to all the moves they've made so far, as we've discussed in pockets in this program.
Well, they've completely revamped the offensive line. We mentioned Tyron Smith. They also acquired 2 Ravens linemen, one in the return of Morgan Moses, which they traded for, which I believe was like 4th round pick, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a 5th. And then they went out and they signed John Simpson to play guard for them, who was pretty good for them last year. It was a prove it deal, and he made some extra money off of the way he played for the Ravens last year. So kudos to him. Obviously, the Mike Williams signing is big. They are really going to. Wow, they really moved Lazard to 5th on the depth chart. No, 4th on the depth chart. Still, that's a wild move. They re-signed Chuck Clark. They restructured C.J. Mosley. They signed Javon Kinlaw, which also was a very good move. And they re-signed Solomon Thomas. I think that's everything. I don't see anything else. I'm not looking at the correct website to do that, but I'm just looking straight up at the roster. But yeah, look, it's been a solid offseason. All we need right now is health. That's really what it is. And look, maybe healthy, this is not the best Jets team that I've ever seen before. I'm praying that it is, but we don't know because realistically, we have not seen this team play together yet. So, healthy Breece Hall, healthy Garrett Wilson, healthy Mike Williams, healthy offensive line, healthy Aaron Rodgers. We're going to have a healthy season, and we're going to find out.
Health is wealth, boys. And when the Jets have the first ever quarterback that's also happened to be the vice president in the White House, it's going to be crazy to say the very least.
You heard it here first. That offensive line is officially now the Secret Service.
There you go. Bars, similar thing. Any, kind of looking in the future here a little bit, anything you expect the Giants could potentially do, and then an overview of how you think it's gone so far.
I mean, I think we're having a great offseason, but don't get that twisted, Giants fans. We're not going to be good at all this year. We don't know what's happening at 6. We're getting a quarterback this draft. That's for sure. Are we getting it at 6? I don't know. We're either getting it at 6 or I firmly believe we're going to trade back into the 1st and draft one of the later guys in Bo Nix, Michael Penix. So who knows? But what I do know is we've been making some great moves. As previously mentioned, the Brian Burns trade was great. John Runyon being signed and us reamping the offensive line as well, signing, I can't pronounce his name. I think it's Ella Noir. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jared. But the tackle, formerly a guard. So he's kind of one of those swing tackle guards. He's very versatile, long story short. He's coming off a career year where our new offensive line coach is coming from the Raiders. So you expect him to continue improving, not like he's going to a different situation. It's a different situation, but familiar voice. So we filled up essentially holes in our offensive line as well. And who knows what we're doing at 6. Like I said, it could be great. We don't know, but end of the day, the Giants are hopefully competing for a playoff spot. If we draft a quarterback, I don't think we are competing for a playoff spot because hopefully they throw the kid in halfway through the season and we're just getting him reps and we like what we see. So I think the Giants, I think Joe Schoen has moved us forward. He came here with the cupboard bare, and right now we're potentially seeing some talent here. He's signed his core pieces in Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, Brian Burns. He's building what he wants as a culture. So am I happy about the moves? Yes. Am I expecting a lot this season? Absolutely not, because I'm a realistic Giants fan, and I know there's some Giants fans that believe we're competing for a playoff spot, if not the division. And we're just nowhere near those levels of the other two teams. So it's been a good offseason. It's been a tough offseason when you really look at reality, but it all depends on that 6, man.
Right.
Everything depends on that. And Justin mentioned earlier, are we only getting 3 years of Joe Schoen and Brian Dable? I hope not. I hope that's why they get the quarterback to reset that clock, because having only 3 years of a GM and a coach are why we're in this situation. We're not able to build on top of something. So hopefully next year we're having the same convo here, continuing about how Joe Shane and Brian Dable snuck their way into the playoffs and just keep adding on to this roster.
Well, optimistic look for both the boys here. I can't blame them at all when it's at this point. Guys, anything can happen for the rest of 2024. And as I saw the joke once again earlier, we've had none so far. I think we've had nothing in 2024 happening on our bingo cards. I think we're going to probably continue to see some of that. And I can't wait to see how the rest of the big name free agents go. Again, probably a couple episodes from now, we're going to discuss that, and then how the draft goes. You want to get an idea of how we think we could do that in a couple weeks' time? We're going to be doing our 3-round mock. Once again, our 3rd annual 3-round mock here on the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the show today. No Podfather, but we had our man fill in just well. Justin, how do you feel after a show of bars, your first show of bars?
Bars, I think we might have an opening soon. Are you interested in full time? We'll talk about it off stage.
Have your people talk to my people.
Yeah, George, by the way, I got to talk to you about something. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, is Rick listening right now? We'll find out.
Well, fun fact, ladies and gentlemen, this is actually, from what I've seen, and I can't remember, maybe it's tied at least the highest live viewer count on the show we've had yet to date, I think. So just congrats to this. Congrats
sorry,
to this.
Rick.
So
I haven't met, but sorry.
Vars, thank you so much for joining us, brother. We appreciate it. Let the people know where they can find you real quick.
Oh, thank you for having me, guys. I'm not even going to tease people. I'm on and off in the podcasting world right now. I do work in the world of sports, and as Jared could attest, it just gets very busy and very crazy sometimes. I'm hoping to get something out there. Hopefully next time you guys have me, I can shout out the show. But if you want to listen to some old shows, Bunts and Bruises on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you can find them. And follow me on Twitter at Bars Talks. I tweet about sports, and, it's awesome.
Indeed. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so... What's happening? Boys, do you hear something?
Nope.
No, I think something's happening here. I think there's a little bit of an issue in the transmission. I think
you just started to play live.
What is this?
This is the intro. This is the exit.
Who's this?
They think it's that easy, friend. They think it's that simple that I can just not be there for contractual obligations, to miss the first show of the new season, and to miss bars specifically. Well, guess again. Welcome to your worst nightmare, Justin. That's right. I'm back. And for all you people who are doing March Madness brackets this year, if you pick the 1 seeds to go chalk, I'm going to find you and drop kick you. Have some originality for your brackets. Ran podium, done. Thank you.
It's kind of ironic from the guy that picks chalk on like almost everything. I can't believe he just cut a promo on me.
That was great.
How long did you know this was coming, Jerg?
Oh, we played this earlier today.
Oh my god.
That was wow.
I almost kind of expected a wig and a singlet.
Listen,
Justin
Justin.
laughing and saw the chicken.
Do you expect the devil's mask?
Listen, Justin, lose my number. We ain't talking contracts no more after that.
So, with that being said, thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, on the season 3 premiere of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. 2 episodes from now, episode number 100, how far we've come from a podcast that is in the top 1% of podcasts, from the 3 top 1%ers of podcasters out there, from us to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I think a lot of fun to come in season 3, a lot of stuff to happen. We're going to have a good time on the show. Because what do we always say here at the end of the show? The tagline is fun, football, and chaos, as the Podfather shows there. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And it's not going to be too long. Don't worry. We're not going to take another 3-week break, everyone. We will see you guys back here in short order next time to continue the free agency frenzy in the NFL. I can't wait. Be easy, everyone.